According to economists, the government's efforts to adopt austerity measures will help strengthen Malaysia's finances.
Assalamualaikum to Madam Izrin and fellow classmates. In this video, our group will present about the news article on the topic Austerity Drive, Government to Defer, Cancel New Projects, says Mustafa. My name is Muhammad Hazif bin Zamjihan and we will begin our presentation with introduction and the summary from the news article. In July 2022, the Malaysian government saved money by stopping projects that had not started yet. They did this to spend more on helping people and fixing the economy. The decision was made by the Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Datuk Seri Mustafa Mohamad, based on guidelines from the Malaysia Treasury Circular. They discussed with the Public Works Department and Implementation Coordination Unit to see which projects to start. If a project had not started yet, it will be cancelled. But if it was already going, they will decide whether to delay or cancel it. The rule applies to all government departments and companies to optimize their expenditure. Austerity means when a government spends less money and tries to save more. They are considered harsh economic policies intended to reduce the government's budget deficit. These policies can include reductions in government spending and increased taxes. Austerity measures are commonly used with contractionary fiscal policy or when the government faces debt default. Historically, austerity measures have usually been implemented during times of economic crisis when they are easier for governments to justify to their electorates and when they are often necessary to maintain a country's creditworthiness in the eyes of lenders. During Argentina's economic crisis in 1998 to 2002, the country adopted severe austerity measures, largely following the advice of its major creditor, the International Monetary Fund (IMF). They included cuts in government pensions and salaries and in numerous social programs as well as significant tax increases. In return, the IMF agreed to extend a low-interest loan to the Argentine government to help its ailing economy.
We have been explained concerning austerity. At this point, let's look forward what's the possible issue if austerity is enforced in Malaysia. A study conducted by Sarah Mariha found that austerity poses a detrimental impact on the country's economy despite the fact that it reduces debt. It can be seen according to one of the countries implementing austerity, which is United Kingdom. What happened to the economy is growing numbers of people in United Kingdom are suffering with day-to-day living expenditures and additional 28 billion of cuts to public funding were announced in the government's November 2022 budget. The highlight of austerity is government will reduce the government spending. Thus, the measures in recent years such reduction to welfare, education, social and healthcare services resulted in a long-term impact on daily life and social ties. The impact persists time and generations. Therefore, if Malaysia decided to execute austerity, the path forward is a fiscal reduction path, which implies the government still needs to invest but only for necessary projects that generate economy. However, Ida Ahmad Yassin, who is University Putra Malaysia's academic, asserted that Malaysia needs to set a target for a few years and need to execute it gradually. If the austerity executed abruptly, there will be a group of people affected. According to William, the austerity drive may distract the government from major changes and may cause grievances among civil servants if it affects their working conditions and deducts necessary budget. As a result, public quality might decline. He added that the 5.3% to 6.3% gross domestic product target is at risk because of worsening external economic conditions and higher interest rates. The Chinese economy contracted by 2.6% in the second quarter. For example, like Singapore, growth was flat. Whether the austerity drive would affect Malaysia's projected economic growth, Williams said the austerity plan will not make it better.
For the second issue is, government is in dilemma in weighing priorities of project continuation versus the welfare of people. In order to save public expenditure, the government decided to postpone or does not continue any project that have been started. so that money can be channeled for the welfare of the people based on their demand. However, there are many different demands of the people to the government. Due to that, the government is in dilemma in weighing priorities. Which one is more important? Does continuing the project or prioritizing the welfare of the people are more important? However, not all of the people's demand can be met, as government need to take into account the priority and the impact of the people's demand. The government need to evaluate every approach taken so that the decision made can solve problems for the well-being of the people and the country's economy. Therefore, the government need to carry out a study on people's demand that need to be prioritized in order to fulfill the welfare of the people. Also, government need to identify which project need to be continued and which need to be postponed to assess the feasibility of the project. Postponing or not continuing any project will raise questions such as whether it will be a loss if the government scraps the idea. And if the government decided to continue a new project, is it a sustainable solution? With the findings of the study, the government can weigh the priorities that it can optimize the public spending and at the same time be able to save public expenditure. The government needs to evaluate in terms of its rationale and priorities for each project and the welfare of the people in spending public expenditure. For example, this year, Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim hopes that the Ministry of Economy and related agencies pay special attention and give priorities to project in Pahang because the project is a high-impact initiative and the people may enjoy its benefit in the long term. All eyes are focused on how the government manage public spending, and if the government fails to weigh the priority, the negative spillover will be magnified.
The third issue is, does austerity restore recession or cause recession? The rescheduling and cancelling of projects is necessary and a wake-up call for every country that keep on borrowing money to finance the project. In addition, Malaysia's budget and debt level is high. Moreover, the country's debt and liabilities has reached 1.5 trillion ringgit or 82% of the GDP. Debt service payments alone are expected to register 46.1 billion ringgit or 15.2% of revenue in 2023. Only by reducing the deficit and liabilities can the government restore the country's sustainable fiscal position. However, when government focuses on paying down debt by saving instead of borrowing, even at zero interest rate, the economy slows down. The concept is somewhat paradoxical since when a single household that is heavily in debt reduces spending to pay down that debt, their balance sheet improves. However, when a country's whole private sector devaluates or reduces its debt while the government does not or cannot spend money, the economy continues to lose demand and slips into a recession, potentially even a depression. In other words, substantial expenditure cutbacks may have the opposite effect on the total economy. This phenomena can be blamed for Japan's lost decade as well as the 2007 to 2009 recession in the United States. The anti-austerity movement maintained that austerity had a negative impact on the debt to GDP ratio, with losses in the denominator outweighing improvement in the numerator. Some argue that avoiding austerity would have led to a lower debt to GDP ratio. Some fear that substantial increases in the government debt, particularly in European nations, might have led to a bank failures and a default, as many banks hold significant amount of sovereign debt. This would have led to a second cycle of a financial crisis and a more severe and a prolonged recession.
Implementing an austerity drive with the objective of reducing public expenditure requires careful planning and consideration to ensure that the measures taken are effective and equitable. There are some recommendations to address issues that has been stated just now. First and foremost, the government needs to prioritize the essential services and protect vital projects such as public hospital, public schools and public transport. These projects are not compromised and crucial for maintaining the public welfare. As for example, example, we can see through the ECRL project, which is said to cost more than 60 billion, which has been postponed by the government due to economic concerns. In order to reduce waste, the government needs to assess the upcoming project in depth and detail, such as they must look into the project's objective, whether it is clear enough and give huge benefits to the public and the country or not. Other than that, the government must improve their efficiency by strengthening their mechanism for accountability and transparency, especially in providing the targeted subsidies. In Malaysia, our government has implemented the system of Pangkalan Data Utama (PADU) to allow the government to identify citizens which are in need of fiscal support, as well as to prevent the instance of fraud with respect to subsidy requests from the public. We also need research done by university students in order for the government to implement the system PADU efficiently and effectively. Moreover, Asian countries like Indonesia and Thailand, they employ structured frameworks to implement austerity measures, focusing on fiscal consolidation, efficient resource allocation, and targeted support for vulnerable populations. These frameworks are designed to achieve fiscal stability while minimizing negative impacts on economic growth and social welfare. Not only in Malaysia that strives to implement austerity to improve the welfare of society, but in other Asian countries such as Indonesia and Thailand are also doing the same thing. The action taken by Indonesia are implemented budget reforms to improve efficiency in government spending. This includes reducing subsidies, especially for fuel, which has historically been a significant burden on the national budget. On the other hand, in Thailand, has focused on maintaining a manageable level of public debt. This includes setting strict borrowing limits and prioritizing debt repayment. That is how the government should work in order to ensure that the government austerity drive is effective in saving public expenditure while still prioritizing the welfare of the people.
In conclusion, the effectiveness of austerity depends on various factors, including the specific economic context, the structure of the economy, the level of debt, and the design and implementation of the austerity measures themselves. In some cases, especially where public debt is unsustainably high and investor confidence is at risk, austerity can be necessary to stabilize the economy. However, it can also lead to significant short-term economic pain and long-term social consequences. The decision to implement austerity measures should be carefully considered, weighing the potential benefits of fiscal consolidation against the potential costs in terms of economic growth and social well-being. Policymakers should also explore complementary strategies such as structural reforms and targeted investments to mitigate the negative impacts of austerity. That's all from us. Thank you.